Welcome to your 13th web scraping tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to show you the website that I made, and it's called adbnews.com/area51, and then you can just put, I think it directs to, it just redirects to index. So there's three links on this page. We can see the source code. It's just three links. One goes to contact.html, about.html, and index.html. So contact adds another link that we can go to the first level. About, it stays exactly the same, and we have three links again. So about and index are exactly the same, and then on contact, it adds this other link where we can go to the first level, and that goes to a directory called adbnews area51/first. And in that directory there's index.html, bling.html, and back to home, which basically goes back to the root directory, and there's an index.html page in there that we can access. So I'll just show you, we can go to the first level, then we can go to index, or we can go to bling, or we can go back to home. I'll choose to go to index, loop on index, nothing happens, it stays on the same page. Back to home, we already know what it does. Go to bling, it goes to another page called bling, and it gives us more options. We can either go back to home, which is the same as the last page. We can go to the index page, which just goes back to this index, or we can just loop on bling, does nothing, stays on the same place, or we can go to the second level, so it changes the directory to the second level, or this time we can go to bang, index, or back to first. So back to first, it brings us back to the index of the first directory. Index, it just loops in the second directory, or bang, which goes to another page in the second directory, and it gives us the option to go to the third level. So in order to understand how this works, I'm just going to show with a state diagram. So here I have open Paint, and I can make the root directory, which is basically just adb news area 51, and that's also known as index.html, that file that's being opened. And just for the sake of to know which direction the lines are being followed, green means that the line is followed down, and red means that the line is followed up. So I'll just use that throughout this tutorial so that you understand which direction the lines are going, because our tree is going to be built down. So green lines mean you follow the lines down, red lines mean you follow them up. So if you think about it, remember the grass is green, so it's on the ground, and heat rises, so red goes up. Like fire will burn up a wooden structure, it doesn't burn down. So from adbnews index.html, we have the option to loop on index.html. Actually, I'm going to make all of the lines that loop, I'm going to just make them black, because you're not actually doing anything. So we can loop on index.html, or we can go to hold on, let me fix that. Or we can go to a new state called about.html. So I'll make that one down here. About.html. And then we need another one over here called contact.html. and we can flow down the graph to these. So here I have a line connecting contact.html, a line connecting about.html, and once we're on about.html, we have the option to go back to index.html. So that changed what I already did. Okay, so we can go down. Next, I'll change color, and we also have the option to go back up to index.html. So if you see that if we're on index.html, you can loop on index, which we have. You can go to about.html, and from about.html, you can go back to index.html. So that's basically what that's showing. We also have the option from about.html to go to contact.html. So, whoops, I will exit from here. About.html, we can go to contact. Whoops. So I'll go to contact, or we can loop on about.html. So here is the loop on about.html, and from contact.html, we have the option to either go from contact.html back to index, so that would be a line going up to index, or we could go to about.html, or we can loop on contact. We could just stay on the same page and keep requesting contact.html, but no one would do that. So I'll choose black, and there's the loop. And next, what we're going to do is from contact.html, it gives us another option. So that's to go to first level. When we go to first level, it goes to the first directory. So from contact.html, we have another state, which is down here. Let's call it first 1st. And we can go down there with a green arrow. And once we're on that state, we have a whole new branch of options. We can stay on index.html, we can go to Bling, or we can go back to home. So first is also known as index.html. Whoops. So we can loop on index.html. And we also have a few other options. We can go to Bling or back to home. So I'll make a new state called Bling. I'll make it over here. Yeah, so right here, I'll make Bling. There's bling.html. And we can go from index to Bling. So I'll make a green line. Green line from there to there. And from bling.html, we can go back to index. We can go back to index. So I'll add a red line that goes back. And then from index.html, we have the option to go back to home. But where is home? So let's see. Back to home we click it, it goes back to the index of the root directory. So actually, if we go back to home, that means we're going all the way back to this state, way up here. So let me just zoom out a little bit. Whoops. Okay, so we're going from this state all the way back up to ADB News. So I'll add that loop in, and let's make it red. So we're going all the way back up to here. And we also have the option from index.html, or I think that is all the options we have from index.html. Contact, about. Actually, we have bling, index, back to home. So those are the three options we have from there. From bling.html, we can go back to index, or we can loop on bling too. So let's choose to loop on bling. So I'll just stay here. Or we can go to from bling we have the option back to home, loop on bling, index, or we can go to the second level. So I'll make a new state called second level. I'll make it over here. Second level, and that's just an index.html page, and we can go to that, go to there from bling.html. So this is basically a state diagram of how our pages will flow throughout our web scraper. But the thing with our scraper is we use a stack or a queue in order to decide which pages we want to follow. So we don't want our web scraper to, say it visits index.html, we don't want it to follow this loop, come back to ADB News, and keep following this loop over and over and over and over again. We don't want it to go to, let's see how many ways we can get back to a state we've already visited. So let's say we visit this state, we find these 1, 2, 3 options we can take. We take this option, we visit this state. We don't want to go back to this state we've already visited. And we also don't want to go to this state and then go back. We could also go to this state, to this state, to this state, to this state, all the way back to the beginning. I mean, we could even go all the way around this in a circle, then go down here, then come all the way back up to the top. We don't want to do that. We want to remember which states we have already visited. So if we get to here, we look at this link and we're like, I have this link I can take, this link I can take. I mean, we have 3 options. I can take this link, I can take this link, or I can, or that was a bad example. So say we go to contact.html, and I have marked this link here, this state. I have the option to loop on contact.html, but what we're going to do is mark each state, but right as we visit it, we'll mark it. So we'll say, if I want to loop here, on this little loop here, I'll have to visit a state that's marked, which I can't do. I can also go to, I can also visit about.html, and about.html isn't marked, so it can visit this. and it's like, okay, I have visited about.html. But what it has to do is it has to see that once all three of these states are marked, the only option it has is to go to one that isn't marked. And the way that we're going to tell which ones are marked and which ones aren't marked is by storing them in a stack or a queue. The stack and the queue is basically, the stack is for depth first search, and the queue is for breadth first search. So breadth first search, what you would do is at index.html you'd say, okay, my options are to loop on index.html, or go to contact.html, or go to about.html. And then it will do it in that order. It'll say, okay, I'll go to contact, and then I'll explore my options. Then I'll go to about.html, explore my options. Then I'll go to index, explore my options. It's not going to go to contact and then go all the way to the very end. That would be depth first search, where it goes all the way as deep as it can possibly go, and then it goes back to the beginning. The way that we're going to store which ones are marked and which ones aren't marked is in an array. So we'll just store all these states that we've seen in an array, and then when it visits a new state, it'll say, okay, is that already in the array? When it finds a link, it'll say, is what I'm trying to link to already in the array? If it is in the array, it'll say, oh, I can't do that option, then I have to pick the one that is unmarked. So I'll go here, I'll be like, okay, should I go back to this one that isn't marked? Should I loop to this one that is marked? Or should I go to this one that isn't marked? It'll say, okay, I'll go to this one. Should I go back to the one that's marked? Should I loop to the one that's marked? Should I go to the one that isn't marked? It'll go back to this one and mark it. So that's basically how our scraper is going to work. And another problem that we're going to face is these URLs, they don't have the HTTP, ADB news, whatever on them. So we're going to have to keep track of what ... this means, because if we say urllib.urlopen ... /index.html, it has no host name, so it's going to throw an error. So those are some of the things we're going to have to consider when building a web scraping algorithm. And I'm just going to make mine depth first search rather than, breadth first search rather than depth first search, because I don't want my algorithm going really deep into the internet. And also, I want it to only go to a certain depth. I want it to go to four loops. I don't want it to keep spidering out forever. I want it to go to 4 loops for one site and then move on to the next one. Because I think that if you do leave it without a certain depth, it will just keep going forever and you'll start getting irrelevant pages. So this has been your 13th web scraping tutorial.